Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it is time for my review of the 5th studio EP from the Boston-based duo Barely Alive. This one is called Domain. Now, I didn't want to start off this video on a really serious tone because I know you guys have been looking forward to this review and a lot of you have requested it, but there is a very serious topic I feel like I need to bring up at this point. Early last Saturday morning, my account was hacked. And I mean, my YouTube password was actually incredibly easy to figure out, so I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner, but as someone who's put nearly 7 years of work into this channel, that stuff can be pretty scary. Luckily, it appears that whoever hacked my account didn't delete any meaningful content from the channel that I noticed, and luckily didn't delete the entire channel itself because that could have very well happened, but instead it appears that the person has simply uploaded a really weird 45-second video. I've yet to figure out exactly what it means, but my guess is that it's just a big troll. At this point, I've changed my YouTube password to ensure that this never happens again, but I am going to keep the video on my channel just in case I have to take any legal action in the future, and I'm going to link that video in the end card if you guys haven't seen it yet. Anyway, I'm really sorry about that serious aside. Let's get back to the review. Barely Alive has been one of my favorite duos in EDM ever since they released their collaborative remix of Collide by Hellberg in late 2013 with Astronaut, but I've gotta say, as a Barely Alive fan, 2016 was probably their driest year to date. They only released 3 originals, and although one of those was back-to-back, which is one of my all-time favorite Barely Alive songs, 2016 was just a really disappointing year. I wasn't really crazy about the other content they were pushing out in general. And then of course we got the We Are Barely Alive remix package, but they didn't really do much work on that one themselves. Now normally I wouldn't complain about a musician not releasing a ton of music in a 1-year time span. Heck, Eden only put out 4 new songs in 2016 as well. But in Barely Alive's case, it just came to be a little bit unexpected considering how huge of a year 2015 was for them. They released not 1 but 2 full-length EPs, one of those being a collaborative EP with Astronaut, and a full-length debut LP, a handful of singles including collaborations with Datsik and Twine, and then of course we also got the charming Doggo off the Disciple Alliance 2 EP. So like I said, 2016 was just a really hard year to get through as a Barely Alive fan with such minimal content releasing. With that, I was absolutely stoked to see what Domain would bring to the table, especially considering it's the duo's first ever EP release with Skrillex's label, OWSLA, and was I absolutely blown away with the result? Truthfully, no, but this is arguably my favorite EP that the duo has done since their debut, Lost in the Internet. Now you guys might already know this, I loved the We Are Barely Alive album, but most of Barely Alive's EPs really have failed to impress me in the past, especially the massive letdown for me, the Rivals EP with Astronaut. I only really liked the tracks where I really felt like Barely Alive was taking a lead on those. In fact, just Astronaut in general has failed to impress me with their most recent songs, which is probably why Ross has stepped back and pursued Myro more in later times. And then in general, most of these Barely Alive EPs just seem to run on that same Disciple formula where there's a few original tracks and then a remix at the end. Domain does not follow that formula, and that's likely because OWSLA seems to have a little bit more of integrity as a record label than Disciple does. And not even thinking in that aspect, Domain seems to carry some of Barely Alive's most creative work to date. I can't absolutely say that about the song Cash, which seems to follow the generic BROSTEP formula more than the rest of the tracks on this EP, but in large part I'd say that this EP doesn't sound like any of the content we've heard from Barely Alive before. I was absolutely floored by the song Elastic Nightmare, which builds up to be this giant dubstep track, and then it ends up flipping in the drop to something completely unexpected, taking a beat that almost sounds like it could be Moombaton. In fact, that's probably what you would file it under, and then it flips a little bit into hard dance. This is just one of the more interesting progressions I've ever seen in a Barely Alive song. It's just weird. It's interesting. These beats are not conventional in the slightest, and I can absolutely say the same about the song Gumby, the collaboration with Habstract. It's a revival of jungle terror, a subgenre that seemed to be absolutely dead in the year 2016. Not to mention, it's a totally different sound for both Barely Alive and Habstract. I can't entirely say the same about the song Kickin' In, which holds the only feature on this entire EP, probably because it reminds me a lot of Windpipe from the Barely Alive album. Like, seriously, the parallels between these two are absolutely unmatched, although I somehow managed to like this one a little bit better than Windpipe. I'm not absolutely sure why. Overall, though, I don't think Barely Alive's Domain is as strong as their debut album. I think the duo is once again proving that it is possible to make a solid full length filled with nothing but bangers. For Domain, I am feeling a strong 6 to a light 6.5. If you guys haven't listened to this EP yet, I would highly suggest you do. I have the Spotify link, as always, in the description down below. And I'm Landon Remixes. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later. Peace.